The black void of space stretched endlessly before Captain Aria Quinn, an expanse of nothingness punctuated only by distant stars and the silent hum of her ship. The Eclipse glided effortlessly through the dark, its sleek, angular design barely noticeable against the backdrop of the night sky. There was no sound, no vibrations, no hint of life in this isolated corner of the universe. Only Aria's steady breath and the quiet clicking of keys as she adjusted the ship's stealth settings. Her fingers moved with practiced precision, the motions so familiar they were nearly automatic. She didn't need to think about the task, each adjustment was ingrained in her muscle memory, a part of who she was. There was no room for hesitation or error. Aria had come to know the cold logic of war, and in it, she had become something more than a mere soldier. She was a ghost, a force that could erase entire fleets without leaving a trace. Helios, status report. Aria's voice broke the silence, calm, emotionless. Her AI assistant's response was immediate, efficient. All systems are operating within optimal parameters. Stealth field engaged. We are approximately 30 minutes from the Valthar fleet's coordinates. No sign of detection. Aria glanced at the holographic display that appeared before her. The Valthar fleet, hundreds of ships strong, was stationed just outside the gravity well of Ravage Send, a star system so isolated and dangerous that no one had dared to explore it. Yet here they were, setting up their offensive, their weapons primed and ready to strike. A fleet this large had the power to change the course of the war, but Aria had something the Valthar didn't, the element of surprise. They think we're weak. They think we're just another obstacle to crush. The bitterness of her thoughts tasted sharp, but she quickly pushed it aside. This was a mission. Nothing more. She wasn't here for vengeance, even though every fiber of her being screamed for it. The memory of her family's death, the cold silence of their destruction at the hands of the Valthar, haunted her, always there, lurking at the edges of her consciousness. But that was not why she was here. She was here to destroy an empire. Aria's hand hovered over the control panel, activating the small device that would begin the first stage of her plan. The Valthar fleet was not a distant target, not a mere theoretical threat. They were here. And Aria Quinn, human, alone, was about to do the unthinkable. Helios, begin Phase 1, she commanded. The AI responded with a soft beep, and the ship's systems shifted into overdrive. Aria's eyes narrowed as she watched the screen, her focus narrowing until only the mission existed. A single click of a button initiated the first wave of attacks. The EMP pulse that Aria had so carefully designed would cripple the Valthar's communications network, rendering their fleet deaf and blind to everything around them. It was a quiet strike, one that would go unnoticed, until it was too late. As the pulse traveled through the void, Aria leaned back in her seat, letting the stillness wash over her. Her hands were steady, but her mind raced through the next steps, anticipating the inevitable chaos that would follow. The Valthar would not sit idly by. They would retaliate. They would scramble, regroup, and most likely, come for her. But that was the beauty of the plan. The Eclipse was already moving, already beyond their reach, cloaked by the vastness of space and the darkness she had woven around herself. Her eyes flicked to the screen. The countdown was ticking down, just under 15 minutes. The fleet's defensive shields would begin to falter any moment now. She would need to be ready. Helios, set coordinates for the next target. Keep me updated on fleet movements. Understood, Captain, the AI replied, its voice as calm as ever, a stark contrast to the simmering tension in Aria's chest. The ship surged forward, taking Aria further into the heart of the Valthar's territory. Her focus shifted to the next stage, disabling their weapons systems. It would be easy to destroy them outright, but that was too messy, too loud. Aria was not in the business of making noise. She was here to make a point, to show the Valthar just how fragile their empire was. They relied too heavily on their brute strength, on numbers, on firepower. But Aria knew better. She knew that true power came in silence. And silence, she was well versed in. Her eyes flicked back to the display. Phase 2, now. Another quiet command, and the ship's weapons systems hummed into action. A small, undetectable ion burst was sent directly into the heart of the Valthar fleet's weapons array. A moment later, their guns powered down, their shields flickering out of existence. The first step had been completed. Aria's lips curled slightly, though her expression remained otherwise impassive. It was working. She hadn't even been detected yet. "Helios, signal the extraction team to prepare for Phase 3, she said, her voice cutting through the tension. In the depths of space, far from the battlefield, Aria's extraction team was already en route. Their job was simple, to extract key intelligence from the Valthar flagship once the fleet was in disarray. Aria didn't expect them to face much resistance. She had ensured that the enemy's tactical systems were down before they could even react. The minutes stretched on, each one crawling by at a pace that felt agonizingly slow. But that was the nature of her work. In the silence, in the waiting, the moments held more weight than any battle cry ever could. The fleet was coming apart at the seams. They didn't know it yet, but soon, the Valthar would be lost. And then, just as Aria's thoughts turned to the final stage of the mission, a transmission flickered to life on the console. It was a direct feed from the Valthar flagship. She could almost hear the smugness in Commander Zyler's voice as it crackled across the comms. "I'm sure you know that we know you're here. But you're too late." The transmission ended abruptly, a flicker of static followed by an eerie silence. Aria remained motionless, her eyes narrowing as she processed the words. Too late? Impossible. She wasn't late. Not by a long shot. "Helios," Aria's voice was low but firm, "initiate Phase 3 immediately. And stay ahead of them." She wasn't just fighting the Valthar anymore. She was fighting the arrogance of an empire that had forgotten how fragile its grip on the galaxy truly was. The Valthar flagship loomed ahead, its imposing form a stark contrast against the darkness of space. Aria Quinn observed it with a level of detachment that only came with years of training. The Eclipse moved silently through the black expanse, its hull practically invisible, cloaked under the starless cover of stealth technology. It was as though the universe itself had forgotten her presence. But inside, her mind was sharp, every thought cutting through the fog of space like a knife. The mission was no longer about just disabling the fleet, it had evolved. Her hands worked the controls with precision as she prepared for the most dangerous part of the operation, infiltrating the heart of the Valthar war machine. "Helios, any change in the fleet's position?" Aria asked, her voice calm but carrying an edge of tension. "Negative, Captain," the AI responded, smooth and precise. "The fleet remains disorganized. No active scans are being conducted. However, you are nearing the flagship. I recommend caution." Aria didn't respond immediately. Caution was something she had always taken to heart, but now it was more about timing. Every move had to be exact, this was a single window, and she couldn't afford any mistakes. Her eyes flicked over the dashboard, calculating her approach. The flagship's main hangar bay was her entry point. It was large, open, and ill-guarded, thanks to the chaos she had already instigated. Her heart rate remained steady, even as the silent hum of the Eclipse reverberated through the ship's bones. The next few minutes would determine everything. With a practiced hand, she guided the ship toward the hangar bay, activating the cloaking shields to their maximum potential. The energy drain would be significant, but it was necessary. A single misstep, a single miscalculation, and the flagship would have enough firepower to obliterate her with a single strike. Aria could already hear the low hum of the flagship's inner workings, systems beginning to stir, preparing to repair the damage she had caused. "Focus," she reminded herself. "Helios, activate infiltration mode," she said, her fingers moving across the console. "Time to slip inside." The AI's voice came through, steady and reassuring, infiltration mode engaged. Proceeding with silent approach. The Eclipse coasted into the hangar bay, its landing gear making no sound as it touched the cold, metallic surface. Aria's chest tightened as she glanced around. The bay was sparsely populated, which surprised her. After the damage she'd caused to their communications, she expected more movement. There were a few Valthar soldiers stationed near the docking areas, but they appeared disoriented, dazed, even. They were still trying to process the damage to their fleet, and Aria was well aware that time was slipping away. As she disembarked from the Eclipse, she activated the stealth gear. A thin, translucent layer of camouflage cloaked her figure, blending her into the shadows of the hangar. Every step was deliberate, calculated. The silence around her was deafening. Even the rhythmic pulse of her own heartbeat seemed muted, as though the universe was holding its breath in anticipation. "Helios, what's the status on the Valthar fleet?" Aria whispered under her breath. "Their defensive systems are still offline. They are attempting to restore power to their weapons, but they are not yet fully operational," the AI replied. Aria's eyes flicked to the far side of the hangar, where a pair of Valthar officers were now speaking in hushed tones. One of them gestured toward the upper levels of the ship. The same thought occurred to both of them at once: she couldn't let them alert the rest of the ship. She moved quickly, silently, until she was just a few feet away from them. The tension in her limbs was palpable. She could feel every muscle coil with the anticipation of action, but she kept her breath steady. The Valthar officers didn't sense her approach. They were too focused on their own problems. Aria couldn't afford to let that become her downfall. She slipped behind them, her movements fluid and precise. Without a sound, her hand darted to the officer's neck, applying just enough pressure to incapacitate him. The other officer turned, but it was too late. Aria was already moving, her hand striking the officer's pressure points with the precision of someone who had practiced this maneuver 1,000 times. The two guards crumpled to the floor, unconscious before they even knew what hit them. Aria didn't waste a moment. She pulled the data pads from their belts, quickly scanning through their files. Her eyes narrowed when she found what she was looking for: a map of the flagship's internal structure. A few well-placed commands, and she downloaded the coordinates directly into her wrist console. "Helios, I have the map. Initiating next phase." Aria's voice was like ice, focused, unwavering. As she moved through the ship, the halls of the Valthar flagship stretched out before her, dark and quiet, the air thick with tension. The ship had begun to repair itself, but it was far from stabilized. There was an eerie quality to the silence. Every movement she made echoed in her mind, a reminder of how much was at stake. Reaching the core systems was going to be difficult. Aria knew that the heart of the ship was heavily guarded, but she had no choice. The information she needed was there, locked away behind layers of security. She couldn't risk leaving without it. The corridors became more secure as she neared her target, the automated turrets hidden in the shadows now active. She paused, analyzing the situation. The turrets were powered by the flagship's main energy grid, which was still being restored. Without its full operational capacity, the turrets wouldn't fire as effectively, but they could still pose a threat. Aria breathed slowly, analyzing the situation with precision. She needed to disable them quietly: no explosions, no noise. A soft click from her wrist device and the turrets powered down. A single, well-placed signal had rendered them useless. It was too easy. She moved on, the heart of the ship just ahead. The central data vault, where all the critical files and intelligence resided, awaited her. Each step she took felt heavier, her heartbeat pulsing in her ears. She was close now, so close she could almost taste the victory. But there was something else there, too. A warning. The feeling in her gut that something wasn't right. "Stay sharp. Don't get careless." The door to the data vault slid open silently, revealing the heart of the ship's systems. Aria stepped inside, her eyes scanning for any signs of life, any traps. Her console beeped softly as it detected the data core's location, and her fingers flew across the controls, decrypting the locks on the system's primary access. But as she worked, a single thought lingered: Xylar knew. Her mind raced. The transmission earlier, the one that had come through the flagship's comms. Xylar was playing a different game now. And Aria had just stepped right into it. The hum of the flagship's core systems reverberated through the walls, a constant reminder that Aria Quinn was deep within enemy territory. The data vault was open before her, its walls lined with the glowing screens that contained the heart of the Valthar Empire's secrets. The only problem now was how much of it had already been compromised. Aria's fingers moved quickly, scanning through the files, accessing classified strategic blueprints, weapon systems reports, and communication logs. She had what she came for, enough intelligence to cripple the Valthar for good. But she couldn't shake the growing sense that something had changed. The transmission from Xyler earlier had not been a bluff. "Helios, run an immediate security scan on the vault," she ordered, her voice cold and steady despite the rising tension in her chest. "Scanning," the AI replied, its tone unchanging. "Alert, unexpected surge in power levels detected. Unauthorized personnel are moving toward your position." Aria didn't waste a second. She had been expecting a trap, but now it was real. Xyler had anticipated her every move. Too late, she thought. "I've already won." Aria's hand hovered over her wrist console, her eyes darting to the map of the flagship. The Valthar forces were closing in on her, but there was one escape route left, the auxiliary escape pods. She didn't plan to run, but she needed a way to ensure the Valthar wouldn't track her movements once the mission was complete. "Helios, initiate Phase 4, she said, her voice unwavering. "Activate the self-destruct sequence on the flagship. It's time to end this." The AI hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Understood, Captain. Initiating countdown." A soft beep filled the room, signaling the beginning of the final countdown. The Valthar's fleet, though incapacitated, was not completely defeated. The flagship was the key to their dominance in this sector, and without it, they would lose their grip on the war. Aria had done her part, but now the stakes were higher. There was no turning back. She had to make sure the Valthar couldn't rebuild what she had just torn apart. "Phase 4 activated," Helios reported. "Self-destruct sequence in place. 10 minutes to detonation." Aria stood still for a moment, absorbing the magnitude of her decision. This wasn't just about victory, it was about sending a message. Humanity wasn't a threat to be underestimated. If they could cripple the Valthar Empire in one swift strike, they could do it again. Aria had become the catalyst for a new kind of war, one where the rules had changed. But she wasn't done yet. The sound of footsteps echoed through the corridors, heavy and deliberate. Aria's instincts kicked in. She had moments, maybe seconds, before the Valthar forces would converge on her location. She had to act fast. "Helios, lock the vault. Override all internal security protocols. Seal the doors." The AI responded without delay. "Vault secured. External doors locking. No further intrusions." Aria's heart beat faster as she moved toward the back of the vault, heading for the exit to the auxiliary escape pods. As she moved, she checked her weapons, silent, efficient, and ready for what was coming. Her fingers brushed over the cold surface of the hidden plasma blade at her hip, its sleek design a reminder of the brutal efficiency she had learned over the years. She could hear the Valthar officers now, their voices rising in urgency. They were getting close. Aria didn't pause to listen. She knew what they would say. They would shout orders, demand answers, but it wouldn't matter. The Valthar were about to face a blow they hadn't even seen coming. In the distance, a door slid open, revealing the hallway that led directly to the escape pods. Aria made her move, slipping into the corridor and advancing swiftly, but she didn't get far before she encountered them. A squad of Valthar soldiers, all armed and armored, emerged from the shadows. Their eyes locked onto her instantly. They weren't surprised. They knew exactly who she was. "Captain Quinn," one of the soldiers called out, his voice thick with disbelief. "Did you think you could just walk away from this? You've already done enough damage. Surrender now, and we might spare you." Aria didn't flinch. Her mind worked in overdrive, calculating the quickest escape route. They were between her and the escape pod. "You don't understand," Aria said, her voice calm but carrying the weight of her words. "You think this is about me. It's about something much bigger than you. Much bigger than the Valthar Empire. She didn't give them a chance to respond. Without a moment's hesitation, she activated her cloaking device, vanishing from their sight. The soldiers looked around, their confusion palpable, but Aria was already moving, silent, invisible. They opened fire. It was a futile attempt. Aria's wrist console beeped in her ear. Phase 5 activated, Helios chimed in, cutting through the chaos. The self-destruct sequence is now irreversible. Aria smiled to herself. There was no escape for them now. In the disarray, she moved silently past the Valthar soldiers, her steps quick but precise. They were distracted by the sudden chaos and her disappearance. They didn't know where she was, but that didn't matter. Aria had already decided. She was going to finish what she started. The escape pod was just ahead. As she reached the pod, her console buzzed again. The countdown was nearing its final seconds. Her hand hovered over the pod's controls, but she didn't enter yet. She turned to face the direction she had come, knowing that the Valthar soldiers were still out there, hunting her down. But that wasn't her problem anymore. Helios, Aria said, her voice steady, almost solemn. Initiate the final command. Activate the self-destruct sequence on the Valthar flagship. Self-destruct sequence activated. 5, 4, 3, the AI counted down. Aria exhaled slowly, watching the numbers tick down. She wasn't there to witness the destruction. She didn't need to see it. The Valthar would know, and that was enough. 2, 1. The flagship detonated, its power erupting in a flash of light so bright that Aria felt it in her chest even from within the escape pod. The shockwave vibrated through the hull, sending a ripple through space itself. Aria stared into the blackness, feeling the cold emptiness of space around her. She had done it. The mission was complete. The Valthar Empire would never recover from this. And humanity had just proven something that would echo across the galaxy: never again would they be underestimated.